Jennifer Murtazashvili, Pittsburgh universiteti Xalqaro rivojlanish dasturi, jamoatchilik va xalqaro aloqalar oliy maktabining direktori. Uning tadqiqotlarida Markaziy va Janubiy Osiyodagi boshqaruv, xavfsizlik hamda rivojlanish masalalari aks etadi. Murtazashvili 1997-yilda Georgetown universitetida bakalavr darajasiga, 2006-yilda Wisconsin-Madison universitetida qishloq xo'jaligi va amaliy iqtisodiyot yo'nalishi bo'yicha magistr darajasiga erishdi. 2009-yilda falsafa fanlari doktori darajasini olgan. 5 yil davomida Markaziy Osiyo mamlakatlarida istiqomat qilib, siyosatga oid tadqiqotlar olib borgan.
Inson huquqlari muammolari qay darajada o'z yechimini topgan 15 yil avval va hozir?
So 15 years ago, the situation with human rights was very difficult, and things have become a lot easier. Many human rights organizations that I used to work with 15 years ago, for example, Shuhrat Ganiyev, it was very difficult for him. I'm sure you know his organization from Bukhara. They had a very difficult time working, and now they're partners with the government. They're working with the government on issues like monitoring labor rights and child labor in different parts of the country. And for me, this is really surprising. I never expected to see this. I never expected to see so many human rights organizations partnering with the government. And this is a huge, huge first step for the improvement of human rights in the country. Now, that's not to say everything's perfect. Change is never quick in these areas. It takes a long time.
Siz bugun Uzbekistan prezidenti Shavkat Mirziyoyevning siyosatiga qanday baho berasiz?
So President Mirziyoyev has unleashed some very ambitious reforms. And the reforms are in every sector of society, whether it's economic reforms, human rights issues, labor reforms, education reforms. And so there's a lot that he's trying to do. The reforms are moving quickly, and I think in some areas they're more complete than in others. For example, in economic reform, there's been a lot of changes, and those changes seem to have happened more quickly than in areas of democratization and allowing more citizen participation in government. And President Mirziyoyev has spoken about this himself. For example, he's talked about the importance of having hakims elected. He suggested this himself in his own speeches. At the end of May, there will be elections for Mahalla Raislari. This is the first time there will be more open elections. There'll be parliamentary elections in December. So having these kinds of elections is important because it gives citizens a voice into what the government does, but it also gives citizen oversight into government action. So if these elections are competitive, really competitive, then this will be very good for the country.
Shavkat Mirziyoyev O'zbekistonni o'zgartira oldi deb ayta olasizmi yoki hali vaqt bormi bunga?
The people of Uzbekistan have changed the country. The president is giving people the space to make changes that they want. So in this sense, the president has changed. One person has changed this country so much. He's given people many opportunities they didn't have before. So I would say yes, absolutely. President Mirziyoyev has changed Uzbekistan, and he's changed it for the better.
Aytingchi Jennifer, O'zbekiston azaldan shu podsovet mamlakatlari sifatida mustaqillikdan keyin Rossiya uchun ham, Amerika uchun ham O'zbekiston juda ham muhim davlat hisoblanib kelgan va hozir ham shunday. Ya'ni Rossiya va Amerika O'zbekistonga qattiq qiziqadi. Bu tashqi siyosat bilan bog'liq. Siz hozir qanday baho berasiz? O'zbekiston Rossiya bilan Amerika o'rtasidagi munosabatlar qay darajada shaffof deb o'ylaysiz yoki qaysidir davlatga yon bosishayotgan ko'ryapsiz?
I think in this situation, Uzbekistan is making a very smart decision. It is embracing all partners. It's working with Russia, it's working with the US, it's also working with China, it's also working with Afghanistan. So there are many different partners that Uzbekistan is interested in learning from and working with. And this kind of almost neutral strategy is allowing the country to learn from different models, is allowing the country to benefit from investments from many different countries. So I think this is actually a very smart strategy.
Bizda bitta katta muammo bor. Muammolardan bittasi bu korrupsiya. O'zbekistonda korrupsiyani holatiga va uni kurashishayotgan jarayonlarga qanday siz fikrdasiz?
So it's a very serious problem. And it's not just a problem in Uzbekistan, it's a problem in many countries in the world. And we often see corruption occur when there is a big gap between the de facto rules of the law and de jure, what people are doing. And when this gap is big between de jure and de facto, we tend to see lots of corruption. Uzbekistan has made important strides to fighting corruption. The media plays a very, very important role in this. And one of the biggest changes I've seen in Uzbekistan is everybody has their phone. Everybody can take a video of a police officer who asks them for money. People have cameras on their cars now. They can record what police are doing, for example. And in that regard, it seems that this kind of corruption has really decreased quite a lot in Uzbekistan. You no longer see police officers stopping every vehicle asking for money. This was common a few years ago. So I think the country's made a lot of progress in that regard. But there's other kinds of corruption that are more difficult for us to see because we don't experience them every day. And they occur at higher levels, right, in government. They occur with businesses and things like that. And unless there's more transparency in government, there's more accountability to citizens, it'll be difficult to eliminate this kind of corruption. The president has done some work using the courts, using the prosecutor's office to target corruption, but using the prosecutor's office to target corruption is only one way. Another way is to make the de facto laws closer to de jure practices. And this will decrease corruption quite a lot. It will give people more freedom.
Shavkat Mirziyoyev reforma qilyapti. U yangi siyosat olib boryapti. Lekin chinovniklar u aytganidek ishlayaptimi yoki ishlolmayaptimi, qabul qilolmayaptimi?
President Mirziyoyev has made a lot of changes with government officials in Tashkent. You see a lot of new faces, you see a lot of young people with different perspectives working in government. And they're bringing with them new ideas, new technologies, new ways of governing that we haven't seen in the past. But what you see in Tashkent is different from what you see in the provinces. And in the provinces, you still see the old system. You don't see a lot of new faces. And unfortunately, because government officials are selected by Tashkent, these officials are not accountable to citizens. They're thinking about what Tashkent wants. For example, I spoke with one government official in the Fergana Valley not long ago, and he said to me, "Our new president is amazing. We love him, but he tells us that we should show all of the problems that we have in our community. The old president, he told us to hide our problems, not to show people. And for us, this is very hard because we're not used to showing our problems, talking about our difficulties, and we don't know, maybe if we show our problems too much, will we get fired tomorrow? Will we have our job tomorrow? We want to keep our jobs and we want to show people our problems, but we're afraid because we don't know what will change, what to expect." And I think this can only change if local officials at the local level are more accountable to citizens. If citizens at the local level can have a voice in who is their hakim, and who are their workers at the local level, then I think we'll see those attitudes change. You're seeing them change in Tashkent, but it will be good to see them change around the country.
Endi odamlarimiz haqida so'ramoqchiman. O'zbekiston xalqi 15 yil oldin siyosatga qanday munosabatda edi? endi hozir qanday? Ularni bu siyosatga reaksiyasi qanday bo'lyapti? Sizni fikringiz qanaqa? O'zbekiston xalqi bu reformani to'g'ri qabul qilyaptimi, tushunyaptimi? Yoki bo'lmasam u boshqarilyaptimi?
So in my mind, the people here have been very receptive to the reforms. They like the reforms. I haven't talked to a lot of people who are disappointed with the reforms, but I think there is a sense that maybe they're not going fast enough, or the government isn't following through on some of the promises that it's made. So for example, on the issue of SNOS, right? This is one area where people have become upset with the government. When your property is taken from you without much warning, it's difficult for people to then support those kinds of reforms. And so if there's the ability of citizens to give feedback to the government, more feedback, then this will reduce those tensions. And the government says it's willing to listen to citizens. It's opened these virtual reception offices. That's one way to really open, so the government can listen to citizens. But unless the citizen feedback is very systematic, people may lose their hope in the reforms. I think right now people are sort of waiting to see what happens. But in general, they're very, very supportive of what the president's trying to do. But the president has also made a lot of promises, and I think people want to see him keep those promises. I think Mirziyoyev has done a wonderful job opening the country up. I think he could do much more. And he has talked about that as well. He has said that he needs to do more and that there have been problems implementing the reforms. Continued corruption is one problem. Giving people property rights, real property rights, where they're not going to have to worry about someone knocking their house down tomorrow, where people can own their own land. This is important. But there's not one path. Uzbekistan is going to find its own way. It can't copy anyone else's model. It has its unique problems. But I'm very optimistic with so many young people, so much energy, so much excitement. I think the future here is very bright.